Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Forever Multi-Trans Waterslide and Tattoo 101. So before we get started, just got a little bit of housekeeping. So throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, then please feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your window. That will send the question through to us, and then we'll be able to answer that for you. We will be sending out a copy of the presentation we're using today. So we'll send that out via email after the webinar is finished. So you can look through that at your own leisure. And we'll also be having a few polls throughout the webinar. This is going to be a question. It's going to pop up on your screen, and it's going to give you the option to choose from 2 or 3 answers. And that's just to gauge a little bit of feedback and a little bit of interaction. But before we get started, we just wanted to say thanks. Thanks to everybody who's watching today for being there and being our customers. We know we're in unprecedented times and things are changing and evolving. And we've had to change the way that we run our courses and our seminars. And we've developed this online webinar series, which is one we're delivering to you today. So thank you for taking the time to join in. So the agenda for today, we're going to cover the multi-trans, tattoo, and waterslide papers. We're going to talk about the overview, what equipment is required, a CMYK toner printer, Oki white toner laser printer, how it works, demonstrations, and the all-important cost analysis. I expect today's webinar to last for around about 40 minutes. So who am I and why am I here talking to you today? So obviously you can tell by my accent, and I've spoken to many of you before. I'm obviously from the UK. I moved over to Australia to work for GJS in August 2014. I am in charge of the support department here at GJS, and you've probably seen me in a whole series of our videos, and I run the majority of our training sessions. So before we get started, I'd just like to throw out this poll out there just to see, has anybody here used the Forever papers before? So you're going to see the screen pop up on your monitor, and you can just put in there yes, no, or hopefully I will be using this papers soon. Okay, great. So we've got some answers there. I'll just share them with everybody. So it's about a 50-50 split between people who have used it before and people who haven't used it or want to use it. So this webinar is going to be great for everybody watching today. So people who want to know exactly what these papers do, this is going to be perfect. And the people who have used it before but would like to know some more knowledge in exactly what applications it can be used for. So this is going to be absolutely perfect for everybody. So the first paper we're going to cover is called the Forever Multi-Trans Metallic. Now this is a single color process that is going to allow us to print onto a whole range of dark substrates. So who would like to print onto dark substrates such as ceramic, metal, glass, mirror, all this type of artwork? So what it's perfect for is illustrations and graphics opposed to photographic artwork. But what type of substrates does this work with? It works with non-porous substrates. By that, I mean something that's got a closed surface. So something like glass or metal, acrylic or ceramic. So it will work with any non-porous surface, providing it doesn't melt in the heat press. So if the product is never going to be washed, it can be pressed at a lower temperature, but each material does require a different temperature in the heat press. We'll cover that in a little bit more in a few times slides. So providing it's not going to melt, it's going to be suitable for this process. But what type of equipment is required? So a laser or an LED printer and a heat press. We need to apply it with heat. But what type of printer? So what it doesn't really work with are the industrial style photocopiers, which are designed to be extremely economical. And by that, they put minimal amounts of toner down onto the paper. For this process, that's not good. We need to put a nice layer of toner for the process to work. And also, the industrial style photocopiers don't usually have a straight through path, whereas all of the recommended printers, which we recommend, which are Oki, these are actually LED printers opposed to laser, and it will work with all of the range. So things as simple as a black and white or a mono printer, a CMYK full color printer, multifunction printer. But do you know what the difference between an LED and a laser printer is, which makes an LED much more efficient? So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of this process. So a laser printer obviously has a laser inside it and has a single source of light, which fires that light, as you can see here on screen, through a series of mirrors and a rectangle or a polygon mirror which spins around. It then distributes or reflects and refracts that light onto the drum. Now, this process has many moving parts, whereas the LED printer is simply an LED that writes directly. This is the LED line here, and this is the drum. The LEDs write directly to the drum, as opposed to all of these moving parts spinning around, refracting and reflecting the light to produce the image on the drum. So what's the advantage of the LED? There's no moving parts, there's no mirrors, and that allows, and these LEDs actually come with a lifetime warranty on the LED. So if the LED ever fails, that'll be covered by Oki. So it's extremely reliable. And the benefits, it makes the printing process really quick and efficient, and it allows for a really compact design and a really small footprint in a printer. As I mentioned, because it's such a reliable design, it does come with that lifetime warranty on the LED, which gives it the increased reliability. And then once you've printed your design, you're gonna need a heat press to apply it to your substrate. So it doesn't really work with a clamshell heat press. So the clamshell heat press, as you can see here, it closes like a clam. So this back part of the heat press will touch down first when you're pressing under a thicker substrate. So if you're pressing onto a glass or acrylic, that's usually thicker than 2 or 3 millimeters. So for that, we're going to need a swing away heat press. And then if we're pressing to the cylindrical items, the coffee cups, the water bottles, those types of products, then we're going to need a mud press. Now, we mentioned about it being a single color process. There is actually 3 colors available. So they are metallic colors. There's a metallic gold, a metallic bronze, and a metallic silver. Now, this part of the paper you can see here, it's a single step process. So that's the starting color of the paper, and that's the color it transfers onto the product. So how does it work? So we take our artwork, you can design that in any graphics application. You need to make sure your artwork is in solid black. So this is why it's really only good for illustrations and graphics. It's not really suitable for photographic artwork. We then print that with our printer, our LED or our laser printer, and then print directly onto the colored side of the paper, as you can see there on the right-hand side. And we also print in reverse, because once it's transferred, it becomes the opposite way around onto the substrate. And once it has been printed, we then mount it onto the product. In this case, it's going to be onto a coffee mug, and then we put it into the heat press and press for a set amount of time. So instead of just showing you the static images on the page there, we've prepared this video, which is going to show how to press onto the round items. So we take the printed transfer, And then we can trim this down. So just taking a pair of scissors, we just want to cut it down. It doesn't have to be neat. Just cut it down so it's nice and trim. And then we're going to mount it onto the, in this case, a coffee mug, making sure it's clean, but there's no particles in between where we're going to put the print. And what we want to do is to preheat the coffee mug just so it's slightly warmer. It doesn't want to be too hot so you can't touch it with your hand. And then make sure it's free of any dust or debris. And then we want to mount the printed transfer onto the, in this case, the coffee mug. And then we will need to secure it into position using heat resistant tape. This is the same heat resistant tape as what you would use for sublimation printing. Just one piece on either side is sufficient just to hold it in position. And then what we do is we're going to place it into the heat press. Now for coffee mugs, it is recommended for 4 minutes in this style of heat press at 160 Celsius. And then once it's finished in the heat press, we want to cool it down. Now we want the paper to be wet or soggy before we peel it. So I'm just going to remove the excess moisture from the coffee mug and then making sure this is nice and wet. And then we're just going to start the peel. Now, it's a good idea to fold the tape back on itself to make it easier to pick up here, where, as you can see, when the coffee mug's wet, things can be slippy. But once you've got the tape away from the coffee mug, you can then start peeling the transfer away. Now, what you want to do is peel it right back on itself like this, so that we break the metallic foil or paper away from the backing as we move it away from the design. It can be quite tight, so when you get towards the end, around about now, is when you want to pull with less force, so you don't snap it away and so that the transfer completes perfectly. And then you can remove the excess with a cloth. And sometimes you might notice some excess around the design. It could just rub away with your thumb. If it's a little bit more stubborn, then you could use a cloth or use cleaning alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, just to remove that. And that's it. Once it's cooled, it's then complete. So it's as simple as that. And the durability of the multi-trans metallic. So it is classed as a hand wash only. It's not going to be suitable for pressing in, for washing in a dishwasher. Now, we say it's hand wash only, but it is really quite durable. You can see this little video we've put on the screen here. This is onto a coffee mug, and scrubbing that with the back of a nail, it is quite resilient to that, but still it's not dishwasher suitable. And we've found the most durable surfaces are the ones that have a matte or a satin finish. So this coffee mug here does have a satin finish to it, and that's making it really durable. Now, the all-important cost analysis, as in how much is it going to cost you to produce an item using this process. So the paper is available in A4 and in A3 sheets, and we sell it in various pack sizes, but I've broken down this cost in here based on packs of 100, so buying a pack of 100 sheets. So if we look at the A4, $1.88 for the paper or the media, and A3, $3.67. Now, you've got to take into consideration your toner costs. So this particular image we've got on screen here, this is printed using one of the Oki white toner printers, and we've calculated the exact cost of the toner that's being used there. So for this print in A4, it's 15 cents, and this print in A3, it's 30 cents. But not many people print in full-size A4 or A3 prints. So when you break this down into a real-life situation, something like a logo or a smaller design, say something 100 by 100 millimeters, which you could probably get, let's say 9 of those onto an A4 sheet. So you're looking around about 30 cents for your media cost, 3 cents for your printing cost, which makes it down to just 34 cents per transfer. So when you look at it like that, it's actually a really low cost for printing. So If you have any questions, please then send them through to me now. I'll be more than happy to answer them. So just use the Q&A button down at the bottom of your window and the questions will come through to me. Now we do have, if you have any questions after this webinar, there's multiple ways you can contact us to ask us any questions you need to ask. You can contact us through our live chat channel, our Facebook. We even have a WhatsApp and an SMS number you can use, email, phone. So there's multiple ways to ask us questions. So, but now is a perfect opportunity whilst I'm here to answer them for you. Okay, so one question I've got is, yeah, the durability of the multi-trans. We do recommend it's hand wash only, not dishwasher. I do have some customers that reported to me they put it in the dishwasher and it survived a few washes, but due to the high heat of the dishwasher, it will break down the transfer quickly. So yeah, definitely hand wash only for that. Okay, so there's no more questions coming through on the multi-trans metallic. So I'm going to move on to the next section of the webinar, which covers a different multi-trans product, which is just called multi-trans. Now, this will allow you to print full color artwork. So designs like this onto a whole range of surfaces, the same parameters as multi-trans metallic. It needs to be a non-porous surface, which doesn't melt in the heat press. So the metal for sports bottles, mirror, glass, metal, ceramic, used for a whole range of different applications. You can see just a handful of examples on screen here. We've got the awards, bottle openers, mirrors, drinks bottles, coffee mugs. So what equipment is required for this process? So we need a heat press, but we also need to use the Oki Pro Series white toner printers. So I've got a quick poll here that I'm going to share. So who out here, does anybody have a white toner printer? Okay, so those results are coming in here. So we've got a few people who do have a white toner printer, but majority of people who do not have a white toner printer. So that's a perfect opportunity to learn more about that and what applications you can use that white toner printer for here today. So let's have a quick look about what is special about these white toner printers. So obviously it's in the name, it has a white toner, and there's two options. There's a 4-color and a 5-color option. So it can be cyan, magenta, yellow, and white, or cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and white. So the Oki printers are perfect for this full color printing process. Now the multi-trans printable, the media starts off completely blank. You can see here on screen, this is the front, it's completely white, and then on the back, it's got the logo. So it's quite obvious which side we need to print onto. And this is for printing the full color artworks. And it goes on the hard surfaces, which are non-porous. Now it works in a very similar way to the multi-trans metallic. So the first thing we need to do is create the designs in our graphics application, and then we print it through the software, which is called the transfer rip. Now this is specifically designed by Forever to work in conjunction with the Oki white toner laser printers. It makes sure that the artwork is printed correctly so that the bonding process in the heat press is going to work perfectly. And you'll see on the print on the right hand side that it is actually put white toner behind the color in certain areas so that the process will work perfectly. So how does it work? Almost identical to multi-trans metallic. We wrap our printed transfer onto the substrate, in this case, the cylindrical coffee mug. Then we put it into the mug press. Again, we've got a quick video, which I'm going to run you through here. So this time we're going to take our printed transfer, and it does have a white layer behind it, so it could be a little bit more difficult to see, but make sure you trim that down. It doesn't have to be neat the way that you trim it, but just cut your design out. And then the squarer you can cut it, the easier it makes it to align it on the coffee mug, because we use the edge of the design to try and get it straight. So again, we're just going to preheat the coffee mug just so it's warmer to start with. We don't want it to be too hot that we can't touch it with our hands, otherwise we're not going to be able to mount the transfer onto the coffee mug. So just position that, and then using the heat resistant tape, secure that down. Again, it's the same heat resistant tape that we use for dye sublimation printing. Just secure that in position there, and then we're going to pop that into the mug press. So in the mug press, it's 4 minutes of this type of heat press, and then 160 Celsius. Open up the heat press once it's finished, and then we want to make sure that the paper is soggy. When we put it into the water, we want to make sure that the open end is at the top. If we do it the opposite way around, it's going to trap the hot air inside the coffee mug, which could cause the ceramic to crack. So just remove the excess water. It allows you to handle it quite easily. And then peel the tape away. And then what we want to do is to remove the transfer from the product, peel it right back on itself so that we break the design away from the paper. And peel it all the way back. And when you get towards the end like this, there's less stuck down, so there's going to be less resistance, so pull with a little bit less force. And there we go. And if you see any excess on there, or you can see there, it is really quite durable. I'm scratching that with my fingernail straight out of the heat press, and it is recommended to allow 24 hours for it to become the hardest it can be. But that was straight out the heat press, scratching at the back of my nail. It is really quite durable. Now that's for all the flat products, but how does it work? Sorry, so that was for all the round products in the coffee press, but how does it work for the flat products? So the important part of this is that we want the surface of the substrate to get to a particular temperature. Now we have a chart which outlines the temperature for that substrate. So ceramic, metal, glass, you name it. Because say if you're using a 3mm piece of glass, and then the next time you use a 10mm piece of glass, it's got a different mass. So if we have it at a set time in the heat press, then the different thickness piece of glass is going to take longer for the surface to get to that particular temperature that we need for the bonding process to work. So for this, we're going to need to use a digital thermometer, which has a thermocouple. So you can see here on the heat press, this is a wire, and on the end here, the wire is exposed, and that is the thermometer. It's connected to the thermometer here, and it's going to tell us the surface temperature of the substrate inside the heat press. Now I've got a video here which is going to demonstrate that in a little bit more detail for you. So this is for a mirror or glass, basically the same thing. That's going to be our design. So what we're going to need is a silicon sheet or heat conductive rubber, the digital thermometer and thermocouple, scissors, heat resistant tape, printed transfer, and the blank substrate. So we're going to position the printed transfer onto the substrate, tape it down so it doesn't move as we're handling it, and then take the thermocouple onto the substrate. Position it into the heat press. We're going to cover the base of the heat press with a finishing paper, protective paper, cover it with a pad, and then we set the temperature of the heat press to be quite high, say 200 Celsius, but that's not the important part. The important part is the surface temperature of the substrate. And what we do is we open the heat press when the surface temperature becomes the temperature it needs to be for that type of substrate. So for glass or mirror, it needs to be 140 Celsius, and that's the point of when we open the heat press. And once it's cooled down to room temperature, about 30 Celsius, then we're just going to use a little bit of water to soften the paper, and then we're going to peel it away in pretty much the same way we removed it from the coffee mug. We're going to peel it right back on itself. So if you get, sometimes you might see the unprinted area transfer to the substrate, but just using something as simple as an alcohol or some type of washing liquid, that's just going to bring it straight off the substrate, especially on a really reflective surface like mirror. That could be quite obvious. And it is really durable, but again, it's not suitable for dishwasher because a dishwasher gets to really high temperatures. So that's the process for going onto flat surfaces. Now, I've broken down here the cost analysis. It's the multi-trans printables, should we say, is available in A4 and in A3 sheets. And I've based this again on packs of 100. So A4, we're looking around about sorry, that's incorrect. We're looking around about 80 cents printing cost. And then for A3, around about $1.67. But again, not many people are printing full-size A3 or A4. It's more of a smaller logo or a smaller design. So this particular image here we use in that coffee mug in the video, this is 50 by 85 millimeters. And the media cost for that is going to be 5 cents because we can lay multiple designs up on one sheet. The printing costs, so that's the toners and the consumables inside of the printer, all of that can be calculated directly from the TransferRip software. So all of that is in there for you, gives you the total costing. So for this design, we're looking at 12 cents in our printing costs, which is the paper and the consumables inside the printer, which is a really low cost for something like this onto a dark substrate. So that brings us to the end of our multi-trans sections. So do you have any questions you'd like me to answer upon that? So please send them through using the Q&A section down at the bottom of your window. So the two papers we just spoke about, multi-trans metallic, that's the single color process, and the multi-trans is the full color process, which works with the oaky white toner laser printers. And they're both designed for non-porous surfaces, things like ceramic, metal, glass, providing it's not going to melt in the heat press. So I've got a quick question here. What do I ask for when looking for a digital thermometer? And what brand? So it is literally called a digital thermometer with a thermocouple. And what I can do is, there's actually a really good place you can buy this from. It's called from JCar. It's around about $40. And I can send you a link to this a little bit later. You're welcome. Okay, so there's no more questions coming through. That means I've done a really good job in explaining both of those types of media to you. So what we're going to do is just move along to the next product, which is called the Forever Tattoo Paper. And as the name suggests, it allows you to create and sell temporary tattoos using your laser printer. So as you can expect, there's a multitude of applications you can use this for. So it could be used for branding at events. It could be used for actual tattoos. So if you want to try out a tattoo before you actually get one inked in permanently, it could be used as a tester to see if it's in the correct location, if you're happy with the design. It could be used just for fun, like the one there in the middle at the top. That's my arm. Or it could be used for registration. So this is a QR code that can actually be read. Chris from Forever in Germany, he actually sent me a video of himself boarding a plane when we could actually still do that, with a barcode tattooed to his forearm of his boarding pass. Obviously, they wouldn't let him board just based on that. He had to show his original boarding pass, but it actually scanned and he could then board the plane. So it could be used for like sporting events where you have a number. I go to something called Park Run, which you need a barcode to scan in and scan out to get your time for the race. Be perfect just to tattoo that on your arm so you don't have to carry the piece of paper with you during running. Absolutely perfect. So I've got a quick poll that I'm just going to throw out here. Who thinks they would have a market for temporary tattoo options just like this? Okay, that's great. So I'm just going to share these results. So that's a pretty good mix between yes and not sure. Nobody says no, we don't have a market for it, but not sure is good, because at the end of this little section, you'll know how to actually create these tattoos and put them out there to gauge some interest from your customers or your market to see if it's something that can generate you some revenue. So what equipment is required? So the tattoo paper will work with basically any type of LED or laser printer. So it works with the full range of the Oki printers. So down to the black and white mono printer. So obviously that's only going to print a black and white design. CMYK, so that's going to allow you to print full color artwork. And it even works with the Oki Pro Series white toner laser printers. Now this is going to add extra vibrancy for all skin types, and it's really going to allow you to produce those artworks with white in it as well. Whereas if you're not using a white toner printer, you obviously can't print white, which won't transfer. It's going to be a transparent area of the design. So what's the process to go through? So it's a two-step process. There's two papers. There's an A paper. That's the part we print onto. You can see there on the left of the screen, the back of the paper has a logo. The other side is blank. And the second part is an adhesive sheet, which we then put onto the A paper. Let me show you in a bit more detail. So we create our design using whichever graphics application that you want to, and then print that with our printers. So whether you're printing on a regular mono or CMYK LED printer, or whether you're going to be using the Oki white toner laser printer, we send it straight through the printer driver and it prints out like you can see here. We print in in reverse. So once it's transferred, it is the opposite way around. Now, once we have printed it, we need to apply the adhesive sheet over top of the transfer. So you can see there that I'm applying the adhesive on top of the design. Then once we've done that, what we then need to do is to heat press that on. No, I'm only joking. We don't actually put your arm inside the heat press. I crack myself up sometimes. What we do is apply it like the temporary tattoos that have been around for many, many years now, just using a little bit of water and heat press that. No, we don't heat press that. We transfer that using water onto the skin. I just want to make sure you definitely don't put your arm in the heat press. So I've got a video again on how it works, which I find videos demonstrate the process a whole lot easier. So we've just taken our design, printed it straight out of the white toner printer using the regular printer driver. And then we're going to take the adhesive sheet and place it over the printed transfer. So what I'm going to do is just peel the corner back, and I'm going to line up the corners of the two sheets and get them started. And then I'm going to take my squeegee, and then as I remove the backing of the adhesive sheet, I'm just going to move the squeegee across there just to remove or make sure no air bubbles form, and go all the way across the design, and then just smooth that out. Make sure there's no wrinkles and no air bubbles. Pretty simple, quick. And once that's done, what you want to do is just take a pair of scissors and then just cut that down. Now, the unprinted area will transfer to the skin. So if the neater you can cut this down, the better. If you have a plotter, you could print the crop marks and run it through the plotter. So that would be an absolutely perfect cut. So just take your little time, cut that down. And then what we do is we remove the adhesive, place that down onto wherever you want to transfer. In this case, it's on my arm. Take a damp cloth and then just wetten or moisten the backing paper. And then once it's wet, just like that, you can either slide it off or just peel it away, just like that. And that's it. It's transferred, it's on your body or wherever you want to put it. So a few questions that I've been asked is it skin friendly? It is non-toxic, so it's absolutely safe for the skin. It's water resistant, so it can be worn. It's going to last for several days during washing processes. Up to 5 to 7 days it actually lasts for, depending on where it is. If it's on a surface, it's going to, of the body where it's going to get more abrasion, so it's going to last less time. But on average, 5 to 7 days is a good lifespan of the transfer. No cost analysis. Well, how much is it going to cost you to produce this? So it's available in A4 sheets, and we can sell it in various pack sizes. Packs of a 100, you're going to get this A4 sheets for $4.48 each. Your printing cost, this is based on the Oki Pro 8432 white toner printer. For this design in A4 size, it's going to cost 41 cents. But again, not many people are printing full A4 tattoos. So break this down. The actual one I put on my arm is going to cost 37 cents for the media and the toner or the consumable cost inside the printer. So it's a relatively low price for this type of application. Okay, so that's the end of the tattoos. It is really as simple and as easy as it seems. It works with any laser printer. If you have a white toner laser printer, it adds that extra vibrancy. It's going to make it stand out that little bit more. So if you've got any questions at this point, please send them through to me right now. Okay, so we will swiftly move on to the last section of our webinar today, which is for the Forever Waterslide. Not this type of Waterslide. When I told everybody in the office that we're getting in a new product called Waterslide, this is what everybody expected. I came to the office the next day and everybody was in their swimmers. So it would be good if we got this down into the warehouse, but the Waterslide paper is a little bit different to this. What the Waterslide paper is going to do is allow you to transfer or print onto those heat sensitive surfaces. So There's a whole range of products that you can print onto, such as the toy cars, the toy models, and things like candles, which obviously you can't put a candle in the heat press, otherwise it's going to turn into a puddle of wax. So using the Waterslide paper will allow you to go into all this heat sensitive products, things that were going to melt in the heat press. That's what I mean when I say heat sensitive. So what equipment is required? So this again will work with any type of laser printer. So if you're going to go onto a white substrate, then you can use any type of laser printer. But if you're going to go onto dark substrates, like a red candle, for example, then you're going to need to use the white toner laser printer. And it does work best with the A3 model, which is the Oki Pro 8432. And I'll explain that in a little few slides time when we go through the video. So how does it work? Again, we create our design using any graphics application and then print that through your printer. Now, if we are going to be using the white toner laser printer to go into the darker substrate, then we do need to use the transfer rip, because this has special options in there that's going to allow us to make this work perfectly. And once it's been printed, we cut it out, put it into the water, and then we slide it onto the product. So see where the name comes from? Put it into water, slide it onto the product. So here's a little video which I promised you all. So let's just play that. So with the Oki Pro 8432, what's really special about this printer is that it's going to allow us to swap the white and the cyan toners around so that we can print the white down first. So with all of the transfer printing, we need to put the white down last, because then we transfer it, so the white will be first. But in this instance, we need the white to go down first, and then the color to go on top of it. Now, this is only achievable through when using the transfer rip. So in the transfer rip, it allows us to tell the printer we'll swap those two toners around so this process will work correctly. Once it's printed, just trim down your design. Then the neater you can trim it down, the better it's going to be, because the unprinted area will be a transparent area on the product. So again, if you've got a plotter, you could print the crop marks onto that paper, run it through the plotter, and it can cut it out to make an absolutely perfect cut. And we place it into the water for around about 30 seconds. That's going to allow the water to absorb into the transfer paper. Then what we do is we pull it out, and then what we want to do is separate the top layer from the paper backing. And gently handle it, and then slide it onto our product. In this case, the candle. And whilst it's still wet and got moisture in there, it's going to allow you to slide it around and get it in position. And then just using a squeegee, what we want to do is just run over that surface to make sure it's nice and tightly pressed down and there's no air bubbles or crinkles in the media. And then what we want to do is allow that to air dry for at least 2 hours for it to harden, and then it's basically ready to go. So I've got the cost analysis here. Again, I broke this down based on actual printing costs from the Oki Pro 8432 and on pack when buying packs of 100 of the media. So it's available in A4, so around about $2.94. So say around that to $3 for a sheet. Your printing costs on A4, this design is 80 cents. We break that down to actual real life scenarios where we're printing smaller decals and logos. Then this image we put onto that candle, 60 by 60 millimeters, is going to cost 35 cents to that transfer. But if you're working with other products, such as like those model cars, you're going to be printing really small areas. So your cost is going to be next to nothing. Now, we've spoke quite a lot about the Oki Pro Series white toner laser printers. So what I'm going to do is give you a lot more detail about those models. So there's three models in the range. So on the left of the screen, you've got the Oki Pro 7411. In the middle of the screen, you've got the Oki Pro 8432. And on the right of the screen, you've got the Oki Pro 9541. Now, the 8432, this is the most popular printer that we have. And it actually is the world's smallest footprint of any A3 printer there is out there. It is really, really compact. It is basically the same size as the A4 printer, which is quite astounding. So you remember a few slides ago, earlier on in this webinar, I explained about the moving parts. So because it is an LED, it has no moving parts. So it allows it to make it a really small printer. Now, those prices we've got there down at the bottom of the screen, they are the recommended retail prices. But for anybody watching this webinar today, we do have special pricing available. So please, if you're interested, please get in touch with us and we can go over all that with you. Now, the Oki Pro Series printers, not only does it allow us to use the forever transfer paper, but there's an endless amount of possibilities that you can use these printers for. So it allows us to print onto really thick cardstock. So the 8432 allows us to print up onto 256 GSM cardstock, which could be perfect for printing menus or stationery, or even onto specialty labels for making packaging. So this is just a small amount of options. Your imagination is basically the limitation with this. So providing the media is laser printer compatible, it's going to work and allow you to make a whole range of items with these printers, in addition to using all the forever transfer papers. And what's really special about the Oki Pro Series, it allows you to print onto banner media. So when we're using the fold down tray at the front, which is called the multi-purpose tray, you can print onto media up to 1.5 meters in length. So providing the media is compatible with laser printers, it allows you to print these point of sale type banner stands, or for posters, displays, a whole range of different things that you can do with these printers, not just using the forever transfer papers. Now, just a few more ideas, short run promotional packaging, and because it does allow you to print onto that really thick cardstock, you can make those short run packaging ideas, you can mock them up before you send them into mass production. It just allows you to do a whole range of things. So do you have any questions about what we've just talked about this afternoon? I've got a question here that's come through. Would you be able to put a clear resin over the top of the water slide after it's dried? Yes, absolutely. That's going to give it a stronger durability. Because it is a water slide media, it is applied with water. Water will take it away from the product. So it's not going to, you can't use it on something that's going to be washed. So using that resin is going to make it more durable. So the 7411 can be used for the water slide, but one thing to bear in mind is on the 7411, we can't put the white toner down first. So that's going to limit you to printing it for the white substrate, so a lighter colored substrate. So if you're going to go onto a black substrate, then it might affect the colors a little bit. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. So I've got a question, a really good question here. It's come through. What is the thickness difference between the tattoo and the water slide? So they are both a very thin product. I don't have the exact micron of the media to hand, but I can definitely look into that and get that back to you. I do know that both papers are very similar in thickness. I just don't recall the exact micron of them both. They are quite thin. I would suggest they are around about 50 microns. But I would confirm that and come back to you. So another question that just popped through, can you use the Waterslide for tattoo? Unfortunately not. The Waterslide will need to go onto a smooth surface, and if the Waterslide media gets wet, the design will come away. So it's not waterproof at all, whereas the tattoo media is waterproof. Okay, so that's going to bring us to the end of our Q&As. Now, that is the end of our webinar, but before I do leave you all to get back to your day, we do have a little gift for everybody who's watching here. So until the 11th of September, we have this special discount code that you can use on our website, which is going to give you a 15% saving on any Oki CMYK LED printer. So during the checkout, you can add that to your cart. Remember, checkout on the right-hand side, just input that code 2008 Oki webinar, and that's going to give you a 15% discount. That's just a little gift from us to you to say thank you for taking some time out of your day to learn some knowledge and learn exactly what you can achieve with these Oki white toner laser printers and the forever transfers. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.